Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a bit of lit, and it's time to talk about Leaves of Grass. A few poems, all called Thought, about different thoughts that Walt Whitman had that are quite interesting. Now, the reason I started reading poetry again is because it's been a long time since I've read poetry, and whenever I return to poetry, I return to Walt Whitman, because Walt Whitman makes me feel good. I really love his poetry, and he sort of makes me feel good about being an American, and a little bit oddly patriotic, just because his enthusiasm is infectious, his enthusiasm for America, and there's that. Having read some of these poems again, I do feel better. Not that I was upset, definitely, about what's happening in America currently. Don't get me wrong, but other than that, I was feeling fine. I just wanted to return, and I feel much better. I feel at ease. And, in some ways, the poems I'm going to read, I feel like they're general enough that they're meant to be timeless, and that there's certain values that are being shared in here that Walt Whitman is trying to show is the American character. And so when I share these, normally when I read Walt Whitman, I feel joy and enthusiasm about America in some way. Now it's just sort of a hollow happiness, an empty shell of what it could be, given the rot of American leadership. It's embarrassing. Anyway, let's read some poems randomly selected, and so here's where it is. They're all called Thought. Number 1. Of obedience, faith, adhesiveness. As I stand aloof and look, there is to me something profoundly affecting in large masses of men, following the lead of those who do not believe in men. I love this guy. I do. In some ways, it's not appropriate to use texts from a long time ago by people who would have never known the horrors of the modern day to, say, oh, this is what he's talking about. This kind of thing. At the same time, if you've ever read Walt Whitman, he's always on about democracy and the greatness of the American spirit and character, and it's just, when I read this poem, I feel like it's general enough and pointed enough that it's quite clear the kind of person he might be talking about when he says, there is to me something profoundly affecting in large masses of men following the lead of those who do not believe in men. And I can tell you right now, there is a president currently sitting in office that does not believe in men. He only believes in himself. If he even believes in himself, I don't know. I don't know if he believes in anything. He's disappointing is too light a term for him, but that's what I'm going with. Thought. Of justice, as if justice could be anything but the same ample law, expounded by natural judges and saviors, as if it might be this thing or that thing according to decisions. He did it again. Now, I have read that Walt Whitman had his issues with black people. Was not exact, maybe he wasn't for slavery. I don't know too much about, but I mean, when you read his work, you think there's no way he could be for slavery. But I have read somewhere that he was still prejudiced. So that is disappointing, and yet the way I read this poem, I definitely think maybe he wouldn't have understood. Well, he would not have understood Black Lives Matter. But, I could be wrong about the kind of person Walt Whitman is. I am not well read on him. I either heard it somewhere or I read it somewhere, and I didn't get a backup resource on that. I just kind of, that makes sense. I know, Lincoln, despite freeing slaves, had his own issues with black people, and, even Lyndon B. Johnson, or William Faulkner, if we're going with another writer, have these issues, despite being, I guess, a little more progressive in some respects. Still, all the same, I read that one as if justice could be anything but the same ample law. The same, right? Equal treatment, this kind of thing. Expounded by natural judges and saviors. As if it might be this thing or that thing, according to decisions. The internal bias, the what's that term? Institutionalized racism, this kind of thing. Probably not what he's talking about. I think for Whitman, it's probably going a step away from that and just in general for U.S. citizens and that kind of thing. But in this case, it's probably not what he's talking about. Certainly he wouldn't have known, probably understood Black Lives Matter, that kind of thing, which Black Lives Matter, by the way. But there is this general feeling of him. Maybe he would have, as a more modern author, poet, he would have been for it. I don't know. But when I read it, that's sort of how I view it, I guess, from my perspective. So that I can square away how great Whitman is. I don't know. Thought of equal, and this one is good. Okay. The other two I think are good. This one is just like, of equality. As if it harmed me, giving others the same chances and rights as myself, as if it were not indispensable to my own rights that others possess the same. Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. He's an amazing poet. This is an excellent edition. It has all kinds of wonderful critical apparatus here for the footnotes, and there are these wonderful essays in the back. I think, well, this is Whitman's writing, but yeah, criticism in the back. And I believe, if I remember right, there are 2 versions of Leaves of Grass in here. Yeah, the text of Leaves of Grass, 1891, 1892, the last edition. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's, yeah, poems excluded from Leaves of Grass, other poetry and prose, passages excluded from Leaves of Grass, uncollected poems, poems excluded, unpublished poems, uncollected manuscript fragments, prefaces, recent criticism, all this kind of stuff. Or just get a different Leaves of Grass. Walt Whitman, though, okay? I mean, yeah, probably has his issues. But, all I can say is that I really like this poem. as if it were not indispensable to my own rights that others possess the same. Okay? Black Lives Matter. Goodbye.